Good evening and welcome to Primetime News on TV1. Before we head into our stories in detail, let's take a look at your headlines for tonight.
Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jhankar arrives in Sri Lanka. Indian Minister to hold bilateral discussions with the President and Prime Minister. Cabinet grants approval to enter into an agreement to receive the COVID-19 vaccines through the COVAX facility. State Minister reveals about a mafia behind the repatriation of expatriates to Sri Lanka. Mining for limestone prohibited within 100 meters corridor from the Victoria Reservoir. Were trees cut down at the Rajapila Garden with the necessary approval?
මධ්‍යම පරිසර අධිකාරිය නාගරික සංවර්ධන අධිකාරියත් අනුමැතියට යටත්ව තමයි මේ කටයුත්ත සිදු කළා කියලා දැනට වාර්තා වෙන්නේ.
Where is the founder of Alibaba, Jack Ma?
Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jhankar arrived in Sri Lanka for a two-day official visit today.
Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jhankar landed at the Bandar Naik International Airport on a chartered flight at 4:20 p.m. today. A team of officials, including State Minister Tharaka Balasurya and the Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, were present at the airport to welcome the minister. The Indian External Affairs Minister is expected to engage in bilateral discussions with President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa and Foreign Minister Dinesh Gunawardena during his stay in the country. Incidentally, the visit marks the first arrival of a high-level foreign dignitary in Sri Lanka and also became the first overseas official visit by the Indian External Affairs Minister. The Foreign Relations Ministry said that both sides are looking forward to strengthening bilateral relationships through such high-level exchanges. According to the ministry, the visit has been arranged under the travel bubble concept amidst COVID-19 travel restrictions in both countries.
Former parliamentarian of the United National Party Saman Ratnapriya expressed his opinion regarding the tour of the Indian Minister of External Affairs at a media briefing held at the party headquarters today.
The arrival of a foreign minister is no menial matter. Even the US Secretary of State engaged in a tour a few months ago. He issued a threat before coming here. Sri Lanka should assess its stance. That is what he said. Sri Lanka has already decided to hand over the East Container Terminal to India, that is to the Adani Group. The deal will be done for a value of $700 million. Another $500 million is required to complete construction of the terminal. Sri Lanka can earn a profit of $4 billion if we operate it for 10 years. However, it is being sold for $700 million. India is attempting to obtain the terminal and reap all its benefits.
The National Joint Committee has stressed that attempts made by decision makers of the government to hand over national assets sans the consent of the nation's citizens is a violation of the Constitution. In a statement, the committee expressed dismay over moves to lease out the Colombo Port's East Container Terminal and pointed out that it is the responsibility of all citizens in the country to protect public property under Article 28D of the Constitution. The statement has been published with the signatures of former Deputy Inspector General of Police, Attorney at Law K.M.B. Kotadeniya and retired Lieutenant Colonel Anil Amrasekara, who serves as co-chairman of the National Joint Committee. The statement goes on to note that the Indian company has expressed interest in the Colombo port with a clear motive of depriving Sri Lanka a chance of consolidating its position as a transshipment hub. The National Joint Committee pointed out that the Indian company cannot be trusted to work for the betterment of the Colombo port, given its existing involvement in development activities taking place in South Asian ports, including the Visinjam port in Kerala. The committee insisted that a joint agreement inked between Japan, India and Sri Lanka under the previous government for the development of the East Container Terminal is no longer valid as Japan has withdrawn from the pact. Accordingly, it stressed that there is no basis to support the argument that the development of the East Container Terminal must take place with the support of the Indian company in line with the original agreement. While the Indian Minister of External Affairs engages in a two-day tour in Sri Lanka, the Chinese ambassador to Sri Lanka, Kee Zen-hong met with the State Minister of Money and Capital Markets, Ajit Niwad Cabral, yesterday. The Chinese embassy in Colombo, in a tweet, said that the Colombo Port City, Hambantota Port, other large-scale development projects and economic cooperation were talked about in a broader context at the meeting. According to the tweet published by the State Minister of Money and Capital Markets, Ajit Niwad Cabral, attention had been directed towards investment, trade and tourism sectors in the meeting as well.
Our greatest national resource is the sea that surrounds us. Over 8 times the size of our landmass. Let's proudly call it what it is: the Sea of Sri Lanka.
Views were expressed in Parliament on the Ukrainian tourists who have been arriving in the country since last month. Minister Prasanna Ranatunga responded to criticism levelled by opposition parliamentarian Vijitha Herath in this regard today.
The international fraudster Udanga Veeratunga is involved in this. The Interpol had issued red warrants for his arrest. When the attention of the people was focused on the COVID-19 pandemic, Udanga Veeratunga was brought down to the country and granted bail by courts. They are gambling with the current situation. What power does Udanga Veeratunga have? He is heading the operation to bring down Ukrainian tourists. There are more than 1.1 million COVID-19 cases in the Ukraine. More than 19,000 people have died due to the pandemic as well. Their GDP is less than ours as well. Unemployed Ukrainians have become pickpockets in Germany and England and are suffering without proper shelter. Their country has been hit by an economic breakdown. It is from such a country that Udanga Veeratunga is bringing down 450 tourists to the country. These tourists have violated quarantine regulations. The entire country witnessed this situation. Why aren't quarantine regulations being imposed on Udanga Veeratunga? The government was advocating for the concept of one country, one law. If that is the case, Udanga Veeratunga must be immediately subjected to quarantine for 14 days. They won't do that. Instead, they have imposed the regulation on 28 innocent safari jeep drivers. These drivers are pointing out that the Ukrainian tourists had disrupted the situation in Tissa Maharama, Yala and the entire country due to poor decisions made by officials.
කරු මන්ත්‍රීතුමාගේ කාරණාව සත්‍යෙන් තොරයි. මේක සම්පූර්ණ සත්‍යයක් නෙවෙයි කියන එක ඕනේ. පළවෙනි කොරෝනා රැල්ල ඉවරුණාට පස්සේ
State Minister Sudarshani Fernandapule openly declared in Parliament that the second wave of COVID-19 infections emerged in the country from a Ukrainian. Therefore, we cannot allow individuals like Udanga Veeratunga to expose the country and the people to risk. Do not allow this sinful act to occur.
Is Udanga Veeratunga the tourism minister of this country? He has flouted quarantine regulations by not even wearing a mask. We saw a photo showing that he had posed for a photograph with air hostesses. None of them was wearing a mask. The tourists are going on safari tours and visiting various places without wearing masks as well. The media had reported on the letter sent by Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority chairperson Kimali Fernando to the tourism minister. The letter states that the project is taking place without the knowledge of the tourism authority. What does the government have to say to these claims? This is not limited to Udanga Veeratunga. Anyone can come forward to intervene and bring down tourists to the country. We will completely support that. The concept of one country, one law had been brought up. We cannot implement a common law. The law imposed on tourists cannot be applied to Sri Lankan expatriate workers. The tourists are in a bio bubble and cannot come into contact with locals. Concerns were raised on drivers in Yala. We had issued the guidelines, but we admit our mistake. The health guidelines had not reached those individuals as there were delays in preparing it. This is a pilot project. There will be shortcomings. Veeratunga is also in the bubble. I am not justifying his conduct. There may be shortcomings. But tourists are brought down to this country for the benefit of around 3 million individuals financially dependent on the tourism sector.
A media briefing was called today by a group of personnel including Minister Prasanna Ranatunga and the chairman of the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority, Kimali Fernando.
We expect to reopen the airports on the 21st of January or from the 21st of January. We somehow expect to completely reopen airports to tourists by the 23rd of January with the blessings of the Prime Minister. We will discuss with the health authorities how to ease restrictions when the country is being reopened for tourists, and I believe by the evening we can provide you with the guidelines. Guidelines have been prepared. As soon as the Ministry of Health approves it, we will issue it to you.
Meanwhile, a debate has arisen regarding a letter the chairman of the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority, Kimali Fernando, sent to the Minister of Tourism, Prasanna Ranatunga. In the letter, she informed that the visit of the Ukrainian tourists is not being conducted according to the guidelines agreed upon with the Presidential Task Force to prevent the COVID-19 outbreak. She has also requested him to especially intervene in the situation as the Tourism Development Authority has not been informed of the places the group will be visiting.
I have to state responsibly that she has taken steps to inform her issue to me, as the Minister in charge, and to the Secretary of the Ministry. This is the correct procedure. We intervened right away and even changed a guideline. It doesn't mean the rest were changed. That also doesn't mean she wasn't involved.
On the 20th of December, I wrote a letter that the flights are coming on the 27th and 28th. We don't have a set of guidelines. Because there were no guidelines, I told the minister that we need a guideline. At that moment, no guidelines had been issued. Then on the 21st, we got a guideline. The guideline came for 14 days. On the 26th, I wrote saying this guideline is too strict and that 14 days is too difficult to accommodate. Singapore only imposes 7 days. Hong Kong does 7 days. In Thailand it's 14 days. In Malaysia it's 14 days. We requested for it to be made 7 days. During a health pandemic, the health authorities have a power over handling it. They mentioned 14 days. This is when I wrote a letter on the 26th stating that it is difficult for us to accommodate it. The result of that was on the 27th it was changed to 7 days. We work as a team. We do a lot of work in a day for like 16 or 17 hours. We all work as a team, but when something wrong happens to our ministry, it is my responsibility. However, State Minister of Rural Roads and Other Infrastructure, Nimal Lanza, made the following revelation in Parliament today.
අපිට තියෙන බරපතල සැකේ මොකද මීටින් වල ඉඳලා මේ සභාපතිතුමිය කියනවා මේක පිළිබඳව දන්නේ මොකද ලංකාවට එන සංචාරකයෝ මේ අපි දාන ඔක්කොම නීති වලට දාලා එන පිස්සුනේ මේනේ දවස් 4ක් ඇල්ල බුදියන්න එමෙනවද කාමරය ඇතුලේ බුදියන්න.
Meanwhile, civil and political activists expressed their views on this matter today as well.
New strains of the virus have been identified in Ukraine. The World Health Organization has drawn attention to 5 coronavirus strains in that country. There are indications that a new wave of infections can be caused due to the new strain of the virus, as it may not be detected in PCR tests. If we are maintaining a biobubble amidst these circumstances, it will not prove to be effective if there are infected patients or associates.
ආසාදිතයෝ හෝ ආශ්‍රිතයෝ දාලා ඒක නිවැරදිම බයෝබබල් එකක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
Do you think the tourists would want to come down to Sri Lanka, stay inside a room for 2 weeks and undergo 5 PCR tests? These people come here on vacation for only 3 weeks. The average period is 10 days.
දවස් 10 average.
While Ukrainian tourists continue to gallivant around the country and Udanga Veeratunga enjoys on the beach, the people of the country have to live in fear. 5 or 6 of those tourists have tested positive for COVID-19. They have not even released the identity of the 6th person. It could be Udanga Veeratunga. Are they immune from the law? Why is a state-sponsored COVID-19 cluster being created? That is why the safari drivers were directed to quarantine. They are daily wage earners. Those people are in quarantine while Udanga and the other tourists continue to travel across the island.
ලොකු චෝදනා පත්‍රයක් අපට දෙනවා
The opposition has leveled multiple allegations against us because some of the Ukrainian tourists tested positive for COVID-19. That was always a possibility. Visa was provided for them only when they produced a negative PCR test. We directed those people to hospitals and they recovered. 99.9% of them recover. The others were directed to quarantine. Most of those in the private sector are employed in the tourism industry. Their income has been disrupted. Regardless of the obstacles, we are committed to protect and develop our main source of income, which is the tourism industry. The government is attempting to allow notorious suspect Udayanga Veeratunga to line his pockets through this project. Who is Udayanga Veeratunga? He caused the loss of $14 million through the MIG deal. In the international arena, he is known for striking weapons deals with terrorists in Ukraine. These Ukrainian tourists only have to quarantine for 4 days. How are they special?
We don't know the exact situation surrounding COVID-19. At the same time, we are not completely aware of the new variants of the coronavirus and whether they have entered the country. Amidst this situation, some Ukrainian tourists had tested positive for the virus. The government is not conducting itself responsibly by exposing the country to massive risk. Therefore, the government must act responsibly. We will not be able to overcome this situation if the corrupt allies of those in power are not prevented from pulling the strings.
මේ කූට ව්‍යාපාරික අදහස් ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන පුද්ගලයෝ දෙතුන් තුන් දෙනා මෙල්ල කළා හදාගත්තේ නැත්තම් මේ තත්ත්වයට අපට මුහුණ දෙන්න බැරි වෙනවා.
Stay tuned. We will be back after this short commercial break.
Struggling to find reliable plumbers, electricians, gardeners and other service providers? Bellboys got you covered.
Come back to the news. The police announced that PCR and COVID-19 tests will be carried out on those who fail to wear face masks in addition to instituting legal action.
Those who fail to wear face masks and maintain social distancing in Paliagoda had to undergo PCR test. Our correspondent said 50 people were tested today. PCR tests were conducted on those who violated the laws at the Paliagoda Fish Market and the Manning Market. Police warned those who were not wearing face masks and failed to maintain social distance in Mull area, Talangama and Kalaniya areas. Police said around 300 people have been subjected to COVID-19 tests so far. 2 of them have been identified as COVID-19 patients.
Attending a media briefing today, State Minister Arundiga Fernando alleged that a mafia is ongoing when repatriating Sri Lankan expatriates to the island.
The repatriation process commenced with His Excellency the President sent a Sri Lankan Airlines aircraft to Wuhan to repatriate students who were stranded there. By today, one segment has turned this into a business. They are earning money through immoral ways. People are not allowed to quarantine at state-run quarantine centers. Instead, people are directed to hotels of businessmen's choice. Expatriates residing in Europe and the Middle East toiled hard to bring the President into power. They are totally disappointed in the government. My first suggestion is to pay broader attention towards home quarantine. Conduct PCR tests and if it comes out negative, allow them to quarantine at home. If there are any complications on a regional level, we can resolve them. Many people pay over 200,000 rupees for the ticket and another 15 to 20,000 rupees for the agent to enter themselves into the list. Then they are forced to pay 15,000 rupees for the hotel per day. By the end of the quarantine period, it costs a total of around 400,000 rupees. This is a crime. This is a process which contradicts the original process envisaged by the president. This is not what he envisaged. This is a mafia.
ජනාධිපතිතුමා මේක නෙමෙයි කිව්වේ. නෑ මේක මාෆියාවක්. මේක මාෆියා මේක ඇත්තටම ජනාධිපතිතුමාගේ වැඩපිළිවෙල නෙමෙයි මේ.
Meanwhile, a group of protesters gathered outside the presidential secretariat demanding a solution to the problems faced by expatriate workers. A few protesters were allowed to discuss the matter with officials from the presidential secretariat. We took to the streets on behalf of our mothers who are employed overseas. We are happy that we were allowed to meet the president's coordinating secretary Sri Lanka. He promised that the government will fly ordinary flights to bring back expatriates in the Middle East from the 22nd of this month. He also said that he will inquire into expatriate workers who have been hospitalized. The problem surrounding the quarantine process was also discussed. We were told that this would be brought to the president's attention during a meeting this evening.
The migrant workers are not coming to Sri Lanka under normal circumstances. Our airport is currently shut down. As of today, 61,786 Sri Lankans have come to the country amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. There are around 60,000 Sri Lankans stranded overseas without being able to arrive in the country. Another thing I should say is that these 61,786 Sri Lankans who have been repatriated to the country came from 137 other nations. Out of the total number, 28,000 have been brought to the country from the Middle East. So, close to 50% of this number have come to Sri Lanka from the Middle East. Our ambition this new year is also to bring down as much people as possible from the Middle East.
ශ්‍රී ලාංකික ශ්‍රමිකයන් නැවත ලංකාවට ගෙන්වා ගැනීමට
Views were expressed in Parliament on COVID-19 vaccines today.
Does the government believe it would be sufficient to place complete faith in the COVAX facility? If not, does the government have an alternative plan? Under this facility, can we obtain the Pfizer Biotech vaccine that has received validation from the WHO? Given that a committee has been appointed to overlook the process of importing these vaccines, what are the measures that have been taken by this committee? Does the government hope to carry out this process by favouring their allies just as they did earlier?
Cabinet approval has been granted to sign an agreement with the manufacturer when allocating vaccines through the COVAX facility. COVAX facility is a global initiative that brings together governments and manufacturers to ensure equal distribution among the countries. The production and development of the vaccines for COVID-19 are being accelerated and ensures the eventual reach to every country in the world to receive the COVID-19 vaccines through this facility. Countries are informed to submit vaccine request applications under two phases to receive the vaccine facility. Part A, which included the information regarding the target group, store capacity and technical information, has already been submitted. The second part, regarding the receiving of vaccines and signing the compensatory agreement, has to be submitted before the 8th of this month.
President has appointed a committee headed by his advisor Lalit Veeratunga to determine the amount we can obtain and the challenges we will face in transporting the vaccine. I believe that they will present the initial report to the President today or tomorrow. According to media reports, I believe that the AstraZeneca vaccine manufactured by England and India and the vaccine manufactured by China are more suitable for our country. We are discussing the options we have with India and China.
We are going into another commercial break. We will be right back.
Struggling to find reliable plumbers, electricians, gardeners and other service providers? Bellboys got you covered.
To the news. Dhanasiri Amarathunga has been named the Prime Minister's coordinator to the Colombo district. The appointment letter was presented to Dhanasiri Amarathunga by the Prime Minister today at his official residence in Vijayarama Mawatha. Dhanasiri Amarathunga is the former mayor of the Dehiwala Mount Lavinia Municipal Council. A group of farmers engaged in a demonstration today opposing a move to hand over their farmlands to investors in an ad hoc manner. Farmers from Athondagala, Kumbugoda Ara in Ambilipitiya engaged in this demonstration.
Farmers who engaged in farming on Mahavali lands in Athondagala Ambilipitiya for 15 to 20 years engaged in the protest today. They alleged that they were in possession of documents which prove their claim to the lands in question. On the 28th of December 2020, Newsfirst reported on the suspicion raised by farmers to hand over their lands to large-scale investors. The farmers alleged that groups are attempting to destroy their farmlands and hand them over to businessmen. Today, officials of the Mahavali Authority and a group claiming to be investors held a discussion at the D.A. Rajapaksa Hall in Ambilipitiya. The meeting was headed by Director of Project Development Section of the Mahavali Development Authority, Vasanthi Senaviratna. The farmers who were informed of the discussion gathered opposite the location.
එතකොට මෙයාලා කියනවා අපේ ඉඩම් අපිට දෙන්නලු ඒගොල්ලන්ට දෙන්නලු අපිට දෙන්නලු මයුරපුර උඩම් අපේ වගාමින් විනාශ කරන මේ මහවැලිය කරන්නේ අසාධාරණ බොරුවක් රජයට බොරු කියන්නේ
The group made known their displeasure due to the lack of justification provided to them by officials of the Mahavali Development Authority. The resident manager of Ambilipitiya of the Mahavali Development Authority expressed the following views when apprising the investors regarding the protesting farmers.
We had allocated these lands to the Ministry of Industries. During that time, the lands had been handed over in an improper manner to cultivate crops. Our plan now is to utilize those lands in a more fruitful manner. That is why we decided to hand over those lands for industries to be started.
The demonstration commenced while the discussions were underway. The group engaged in the protest for nearly an hour. Thereafter, the crowd dispersed without holding discussions with any competent authority.
State Minister of Wildlife Wimalaveera Disanayake has signed a gazette notification identifying 69 forest reserves in the country.
We have identified 69 forest reserves in a single day. This will assist in protecting 40,761 hectares of forest land. This will also encourage forest and wildlife officers to protect the boundaries allocated to their institutions in forest reserves. There are allegations that deforestation has been rampant since the government came into power. The central bank bond scam was a very smooth operation that allowed people to make large sums of money. No one enters forests.
The Environment Ministry has decided to halt the operations of limestone quarries operating within a radius of 100 meters from the Victoria Dam. The decision had been made by considering the recommendations of the expert committee that investigated the recent tremors experienced in the area.
We
will take steps to shut down all limestone quarries operating within a radius of 100 meters. We have also drawn attention towards regulating the limestone industry. We can breathe a sigh of relief based on the report of the committee.
Journalists raised questions on development projects that have led to environmental destruction.
I
have called for a report on this matter. I have been informed that the Central Environmental Authority has approved the project. It is being reported that the project is being carried out with the approval of the Urban Development Authority as well. We will provide you with further details as and when required.
The Colombo Stock Exchange reported a daily turnover of 6.188 billion rupees today. Up next is your Biz Roundup.
What we are seeing is fresh funds continuously coming into the market. Maturing fixed income instruments are getting converted into equity investments, retail, high net worth and institutional participation at a very high level. Out of that high level of retail participation will dominate in the full market. The overall value of the market has significantly increased. The market cap of the market is 3.05 trillion rupees at the moment.
The Colombo Stock Exchange gained 83.88 basis points today, 1.22% higher to close at 6,978.86. The S&P SL20 gained 21.20 basis points, 0.79% higher to close at 2,708.65. Restrictions on outward remittances on capital transactions that were imposed in July last year to defend currency depreciation has been extended for a further 6 months until the 1st of July 2021.
Alibaba founder Jack Ma's absence from public view in the past 2 months has fueled social media speculation over his whereabouts amid a Chinese regulatory clampdown on his sprawling business empire.
China's highest profile entrepreneur has not appeared in a public setting since a late October forum in Shanghai where he blasted China's regulatory system in a speech. It put him on a collision course with officials, resulting in the suspension of a $37 billion initial public offering of Alibaba's Ant Group fintech arm. Jack Ma came under the scanner of the ruling Chinese Communist Party after his speech in October. The 56-year-old has not been seen in public after officials hit back at him following his October speech where he complained that China's regulators and state-run banks are hampering opportunities. He was supposed to be a part of the final episode of his own talent show Africa's Business Heroes. However, he did not feature in the episode. According to UK's Telegraph, he was replaced by an Alibaba executive in the November final. The Alibaba founder is also not active on social media for the last few months. He has last tweeted on the 10th of October 2020. The Chinese billionaire and founder of Alibaba, Jack Ma, is currently one of the trending people in the world. According to the Bloomberg Billionaires Index, Jack Ma's net worth is at $50.6 billion. He is the founder of Alibaba Group, China's biggest e-commerce company. He has seen a big drop in his net worth after his October speech. According to Business Insider, his net worth has fallen by $12 billion in just 2 months.
South Africa registered a 2-0 victory against Sri Lanka in the test match series that came to a close today. This was after recording a 10-wicket victory in the second match against the tourists. And that's a wrap of this edition of Primetime News. For the Newsfirst team, I am Azra Hassan with our sign language interpreter Brian D. Cruz. Take very good care of yourself. Good night.